This is the Global Digest think tank group. We cover the whole world crisis issue. Especially we started to cover the issue in Asia, especially, like us, Afghan and Burma, we are under crisis, civil war and a lot of political crisis and humanitarian crisis. We face a lot of human rights issue. So before we start our discussion, why don't you introduce our audience about yourself and what is your background and where are you right now? Please, Hashmat.
Thank you very much. By the name of Allah, the most merciful, most compassionate. My name is Hashmat Wajdani, and I'm student of Global Affairs at Fairleigh Dickinson University. I was working for human rights in Afghanistan for more than 8 years with many national and international organizations in my country. And I was working for democracy and for education. And I had a network by the name of Afghanistan Change Generation Network. We were working for these three main goals in our country. Unfortunately, after the 15th August 2021 and destroy of our government, I was also one of the person that, unfortunately, due to the high risk, I leave my country, and right now I'm living in a refugee in a country that I didn't say and I didn't mention that country due to the security problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hashmat, for your brief introduction. What's wrong with the previous government in last year, August? They are pretty much fitted weapon by America, and they have sufficient, all these attack, helicopter and armor, everything. I think weapon is sufficient. So what is your personal view? What's wrong with mainly with whom, from Afghan government or from US government? Or I mean, nobody thought about it will be collapsed suddenly, it was unexpectedly collapsed. So how's your personally your view and your opinion in last year August case in Afghan?
After the 2001, when the US came to Afghanistan, so from that time, for the first time, we faced with the experience of democracy in our country. Most of the people who were living due to the first period of Taliban in different countries, they once again came to their country. I was also the generation of that time that I was a student of 7th class when I came to my country back. The door of hope has opened for everyone because it was the first time that we faced with the experience of a democratic country on that time. But unfortunately, after the 20 years, the thing which has happened during all this 20 years was that on that time, no one, anyone girls are allowed to go to school in 2001. But fortunately, after 20 years, millions of girls were allowed to go to school. The women are working with different organizations, and we had many of youths that they go to the foreign countries for continuing their education. We have the experience of 2 or 3 many times the parliamentarian and presidential election as well that time. For the first time, Afghanistan had a very open media. We had so many national medias at that time. So everything were going very well, but unfortunately, corruption was one of the very big issue in our country. Unfortunately, it created a lot Yeah. The bad thing in Afghanistan, which was happened on that time, which I mentioned to you that on that time, the corruption is one of the important issue in our country. Americans spend millions of dollars in our country,
I
but
mean,
they're
at that
also
time, American army was there and American soldier there and a lot of American influence. So with this advantage, the corruption cannot be reduced because American doesn't, uh, uh, American policy never support about corruption issue. So nobody use such kind of advantage to clean corruption in Afghanistan at the time. Or is American soldier in Afghanistan are also corrupted? How can you say?
no. Yeah, I'm sure you read the articles about of CIGAR, which was the organization. The responsibility of this organization was that they just monitor that spending money in Afghanistan. They
I
mentioned so
see.
many times that the corruption is in very high level in Afghanistan, but the corruption belongs to the some contractors and also belongs to the government of Afghanistan at that time, which was President Karzai. So the another big issue in Afghanistan is that the minority group who are living in Afghanistan, the government were not in the faith with these minorities at that time. So there are so many things as well in the government issue. One of the important things which we monitored during that time, if you are working in an organization in both of these two person in one position, one of them received monthly about $1,000, but one of them received as a salary about $200. So those who have received $1,000 belongs to the minister or maybe something else who are in the authority in this ministry. So these are the very big corruption in our government. The other thing which is very, very important, it was the election of 2014. There is
I
not any
see.
fair election. I was a monitor on this election. I'm sure you know about the FIFA organization, which is monitoring the election in Afghanistan. I was a person that we went to many election sites, and we saw there was a lot of corruption and there was a lot of things that we saw. The government was involved in so many areas, especially with the voters. So these are the things that there is come a gap between the nation and the government. When the government collapsed, the people of Afghanistan, it was not important for them because the
Right.
government was not responsible for the people. So this was a very big issue.
So you want to say the previous government, you mean a kind of indirectly, they buy the vote, a kind
Yeah.
of they overusing money to buy the vote and they win election and they become government. So it's something like that you want to say?
Yeah, one thing was that. The second thing was the election commission was not independent.
I see.
The government had a lot of force on this election commission. So we don't have any official government in that time. But by the agreement, which was happened in the US embassy, and they come and said that you're the president and you're the CEO of the government. So this was not the majority of people. This election and this president were not acceptable for them. So this was the main point and the beginning point of the crisis, which began in 2014. And unfortunately, after the spending of 5 years in 2021, we lose our government.
Yes. I mean, 2014 is very long time ago. At after 2014, you have maybe one time, two time re-election, right? So
Yeah, in 2019, we have again the election.
so at that
Once again, yeah,
time, there is
yeah.
nothing improvement compared to 2014 election.
Yeah. In 2014 was the beginning of this very, very bad situation. And 2019, once again, we had an election. But the important thing is that the US began their discussion on peace process with the Taliban in Doha. So when they began their discussion with the Taliban in Doha, and this was the point that most of the people, especially the politicians, had that maybe the government will transfer to the Taliban. So the decision was good on that time. You know, I was working with one of the organizations that we are working for reintegration of armed forces, how the Taliban forces reintegrate with the Afghanistan National Army. And we are working on this project with one of the international organizations.
So Taliban is willing to integrate with the government forces at the time?
Yeah, so we are working on this project, that how to reintegrate these forces with them. But you know, in Doha agreement, there was so many things. The first one that the US army will withdraw from Afghanistan. The second thing, the Taliban will create an inclusive government. The third thing, which was very important, it was that after the transforming of the government, the Taliban will working on so many things which belongs to the Doha agreement. But unfortunately, the President Ashraf Ghani accidentally left the country and broke everything. So at that time, the aim was that the Taliban forces will be join the Afghan National Army or maybe police after the agreement. But when the President Ashraf Ghani leave the country, everything will be destroyed and the agreement is also destroyed.
Maybe he feel not safe and he had no confidence with Taliban, because after Taliban came to power, under Taliban, he might get killed or a kind of something. He feel maybe danger to live with Taliban. Isn't that?
You know, the Taliban announced on the 14th of August that we will not enter to Kabul city. We will not enter to Kabul city. They many times they posted their announcement through social media and also through many medias, because the agreement was that all of the Afghan forces will be in Kabul, including president, and we will not enter to Kabul by force. When the government transferred to Taliban or maybe to another person or maybe to third person, after that, if they allowed us, we enter to Kabul. But when President Ashraf Ghani, on this day, I was in Kabul. When President Ghani left the country, you know, most of the people, they introduced themselves, they were Taliban, but they were not Taliban, they were thieves. They entered to many organizations, especially to military organizations. They received so many weapons. After that, as the previous president Karzai said, that I contact with the Taliban leaders that please send your troops to enter to Kabul city, because the situation is become very dangerous. So after that, Taliban once again make another notification, and they inform all their troops to enter to Kabul for defense of against these people who introduced themselves Taliban.
I see. I mean, there is a promise by Taliban, a kind of promise, but it is risky for, you know, President Karzai and many his government officer and all stuff, because you know, in practical, any any arms group, you know, verbal is sometimes different. Their practical things are different. So no, politics is risky, you know, and Taliban are not very a kind of rule and norm, standard organization. Their history, their background is they are brutal and oppress many people. And in that way, in that context, you know, the previous government, the president, they may not trust the Taliban, absolutely. So that's the thing. He might fled Kabul, and you can see if Taliban won a very positive way, even they left, the remaining any previous government people, they could be, you know, cooperate and let them give a position to run. Even vice president still remain at the time, you know, but even vice president also eventually run away after a few months. So it's more about trust in politics, and I don't think Taliban keep the promise.
I'm sure that we and no one trusts Taliban, you know, because the Taliban are not stand with their promises as you mentioned. I'm sure, I know, because the Taliban said when they came to the government, they told to the people of Afghanistan that you are definitely changed, but they never changed. And also they promised the international community as well that we change, our ideas are changed. But right now they are not changed. You know, they put a lot
Right,
of pressure in the media. They abandoned the girls from education. It's the after the we spend one all of the girls spend 1 year without going to school because the Taliban promised that we allow the girls to go to school. And the same things, they didn't allow the women to go to their jobs, and they're still in their home. You don't have right now in Afghanistan, you don't have the responsibility of yourself. The Taliban said, if we told you wear this dress, you should this dress. If we told you
right.
you didn't cut your hair like that, you don't do that. So these are the things which made by the Taliban in the first period and in the second period. But the important thing is that why it is not important president that the Taliban come and they kill the President Ashraf Ghani. President Ashraf Ghani is not important. The million of Afghans right now they're living in Afghanistan, and
Yeah,
they are living as a self in Afghanistan. Unfortunately,
right. I
if the President Ghani were in Afghanistan, especially in Kabul, I'm sure about due to the agreement with Taliban in Doha, I'm sure that we will not face with the situation as we have right now. But by the skipping of President Ghani, everything became changed. And this was the big issue and big problem in our country.
of course, I mean, in one way, the runaway of the president Ghani, uh, it's many consequences definitely, but it's his life, you know.
Yeah,
You and I cannot guarantee his life. He has to
yeah.
decide for his own life, you know. Everybody has to decide for his own life because this is politics. Either you die or life. That is his decision. I cannot blame his individual security issue, but there are many other things that can be done. Do you think that Taliban keep the promise according to Doha agreement till now? They fulfill everything according to Doha agreement, or they are not at all fulfilling right now?
You know, as I research on Taliban, and I also involved in so many cases in Afghanistan because most of the time I have discussion with the media as well. You know, the important thing is that right now there is a lot of problems between the Taliban leaders. There is two very important groups in Afghanistan. The first one
I
is the
see.
Kandahar group. The second thing is the Haqqani network, which is very, very dangerous. Most of the suicide attacks during the 20 years were happened by the Haqqani group in Afghanistan. The
Yes.
Haqqani group have their own idea, own opinion, and the Kandahar Taliban is have their own opinion. But the other thing which is very important, there is so many problems between the Kandahari Taliban as well. Some of the Talibans are agree with that we should allow the girls to go to school. But some of the leaders who are very close to the Taliban leader, Mr. Hebatullah, they are against of this idea. Recently, we heard, and I studied in a research, that the leader of the Taliban, which is Hebatullah, that he said, up to the end of my life, I will never allow the girls to go to school.
Very hardliner.
Yeah, but some of them also have the same idea, and they are in the very higher position of the Taliban. So they promise with the international community, with the US, and also with the European Union, and also with the human rights organization, that we will allow the girls to go to school, and we will have our own constitution. But unfortunately, after the spending of 1 year, there is nothing happened. The other thing which is Taliban promised that we will remove the corruption. But you know, right now in the passport office, one passport, the Taliban leaders sold by 1,000 up to $1,500. So this is a very, very big problems and very, very big issues which has happened to Taliban. The other thing,
Right.
most of the leader of Taliban have done 2 or 3 times wedding. I know a girl. I saw the picture of this girl. It was very annoying for me when I saw the pictures. One of her relatives showed me the picture. She was 17-year old, but due to financial problem, she married with a person which has more than 50 years old, and he was working in the airport. The girls married with this person with 1 million Afghani. So these are the things which has happened. The Taliban killed most of the people, which is especially belongs to Panjshir and the South provinces. Why? The Taliban know that people are never accept Taliban as a government.
I see. So they want to kill all the opposition to them, right?
Yeah.
So do you think Taliban is going to have election or it will never happen?
You know, there is a rule in the Taliban. They said we have Emarat. It means there is a person in the top leader, and all of the people in Afghanistan should obey this person.
I see.
And you don't have the responsibility to say anything.
So it means
And
they are not, they don't accept.
I didn't believe that Taliban never accept the election, because they know more than 98% of 98% of the Afghanistan people, they didn't accept Taliban.
So it means Taliban, they don't want election and they don't accept democracy system, right? They want to do their own traditional ruling system. It's again, it's a kind of authoritarianism, right? So they are doing authoritarian system. So there is no hope for election, no hope for democracy, no hope for human right improvement. I don't think they will follow international human rights law, or they will cooperate with international human rights agreement, anything. I don't think they will follow it. It's very sadful for Afghanistan people, you know. It will be not easy to, you know, remove this authoritarian regime. It won't happen near future, you know. It was very good chance, and until last year, because even though Ghani government is corrupted, you know, there is a chance for to come out democracy system in the country. You can able to change a new government. Yes, possible, you know, even though it's not perfect. So why not in 2014? There's a corruption election vote is buying, and why not the civil society or observer NGO and human rights organization? You don't make a big, you know, demanding or kind of movement to improve from corruption at the time of you know, democracy system. And there was also US government. I think in that way, if you demand, if you have a big movement for anti-corruption, I think nobody will be opposed. International society won't oppose, US won't oppose. It maybe take some time to adjust and to cooperate. Why at that time you are, you know, human rights activists, why don't you did such kind of movement or demand for anti-corruption?
Yeah, you know, you mentioned that the Taliban will accept democracy or maybe human rights. One of the important thing which I heard from the foreign minister of the Taliban, he said that I don't know about the basic of human rights which people discuss here in Qatar or maybe in the foreign countries. We already have our human right in Afghanistan. You know, most of the things that the Taliban have currently done in Afghanistan or doing in Afghanistan right now, most of the time they say that it belongs to Sharia or maybe Islamic rules, but we don't see anything as Islamic rule in Islam religion. So these are the things that they don't know. When you say about the democracy and when you say anything about human rights, they told you, no, it's not acceptable for us because the human rights and the democracy against Islam. So they don't know about the human rights, about the
Right.
democracy. So these are the things that the Taliban don't have the knowledge to know about these things.
Not
So
at
this is the
all.
big problem of Taliban. But unfortunately, most of the time they say they are against Islam. We had a discussion which was about the violation of Panjshir province. It was war crime in Panjshir which was happened. The Taliban killed most of 100 people in 2 days. One of the Taliban were in this discussion with me. When we end the discussion, I received so many messages from the Taliban in my social media, especially my Facebook. They told me that stop your speech and medias, otherwise we will kill you.
They
So these
threaten
are
you.
the things that the Taliban say they promise, but if they killed you, it's very easy for them. They announce that we don't know who killed this person.
Right. It's absolutely is a authoritarian system. You know, similar in North Korea. They don't accept democracy. They don't accept human rights. Whoever support democracy, human right is their enemy. Whoever talking about those human right, democracy, you know, they will kill them. Same in
Yeah.
North Korea. So that is authoritarian system. Now Afghan Taliban is doing authoritarian system. That is very unfortunate, even though I mean, they saying they have their own human right. That is not international standard, you know, their own Shia law or Islam uh, culture or whatever, their own traditional system. That is authoritarian system, not international standard. What we are talking is international human right law, international democracy system, liberal democracy system. They are still talking, you know, backward system. Now people are talking beyond, you know, electoral democracy. Now people are talking about liberal democracy and economic growth and development, but they are still talking backward system and, you know, a kind of a traditional system
Yeah,
that is absolutely out of international norm and standard. And that definitely that is United Nations norm and standard, you know. So they are not following, and they are never willing to accept. But they want international money to come in Afghanistan, but they
yeah,
don't want to do any human rights thing, democracy. We also facing in Burma, we have a military dictatorship. It's becoming more and more authoritarian, killing civilian, innocent. That uh, military is just power hungry. Even I am not sure they want to say they are better than Taliban, or I don't know. All authoritarian system are the same thing. Their behavior are the same thing, oppressing people and innocent people. So this is very unfortunate. So Afghan, you lost a very good opportunity. You know, same in last year after military coup in Burma in February. After a few months, Afghan just collapsed democracy, and Taliban is controlling the country. You know, 2021 is very bad year for Afghanistan and Burmese people. We also have a good, pretty good democracy. We lost in 2021. Afghan also lost. So what's wrong in Asia? You know, we are losing democracy. Authoritarians are increasing. That's big issue. We have to think about this. It's very unfortunate. So, how do you see the future of uh, Afghan? What any room is available? Did you see any chances?
uh, as I think the future of Afghanistan with the Taliban will be not a bright future, I'm sure. As you mentioned that right now working on many different types of democracy. But right now the Taliban are just thinking about the traditional government.
Yeah,
Most of them,
they don't do any democracy as
yeah, yeah.
Taliban
The majority
opinion, you
of
know.
Taliban are illiterate people, and they controlled by another country. The majority of them, where the Taliban continue their education and religious schools, unfortunately. So, with this critical situation, the only thing which is the option is the resistance, which is currently in fighting with them in Panjshir province or maybe in other provinces. You know, day by day, the poverty increased day by day in Afghanistan. More than 95% of Afghanis, people of Afghanistan, they don't have good food and water. So this problem increased day by day as we saw the global crisis in all
Right.
over the world, especially the Ukraine and the European situation. So these are the problems with which will put a lot of effects in Afghanistan, especially in Afghanistan people. Taliban, as you mentioned, have a chance. Is this a good chance for them? that came and make an inclusive government. And they invite the people of Afghanistan for having an election to choose their president, or maybe to have a parliamentary system. So this is a Taliban, this is a good chance for the Taliban. So if the Taliban just stand in their own situation, so I'm sure that after 1 or 2 years, the people of Afghanistan will join the opposite in the opposition group, and they will begin the fight against the Taliban to remove them once again and overthrow them from the Afghanistan. And this is the only way. But the other thing which we can do as a new generation, as those people who are outside of Afghanistan, we should advocate. We should continue our advocacy. We should
Right.
inform the international community. We should be in contact with different international organizations. Like I have a discussion with you right now, and with a
Right.
lot of media. So these are the only way that we put a lot of pressure on the Taliban.
Definitely. International society, international community, they don't know much inside Afghanistan. How's the people opinion? How's the people really, what they really interest? They really want a Taliban, or they want democracy, or they want human rights. Many international community, they don't know exact situation, because last year many people may think majority of Afghan, they like Taliban, because the atmosphere seems Taliban can easily come in to the Afghan cities and capital city, and they just easily control. No people are resistant. So international people will definitely doubt Afghan people support Taliban. So after you explain one by one, people can understand what's the real position of Afghan people, you know. We know you're saying many Afghan people, they want democracy, they want human rights, they want election, you know. So we can know about Afghan right now if you explain detail. Like that, you need a lot of advocating
Yeah.
about Afghan issue. You know?